Albert Einstein, the great scientist, said, "The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant." We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. Dear students, today in this session, we are going to know about the notion of the sacred. Let us see the objectives: to know the meaning of the sacred, to learn the definitions of sacred, to understand the dimensions of the sacred. Okay, students, have you ever heard about Big Five? World is a category used in the study of religion to demarcate the five, and in some cases more, largest and most internationally widespread religious movements. Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity and Islam are always included in the list, being known as the Big Five. Some scholars also include other world religions such as Taoism, Jainism, Sikhism, Zoroastrianism and Baha'i faith in the category. These are often contrasted against other categories such as indigenous religions and new religious movements, which are also used by scholars in this field of research. Sacred, the power, being or realm understood by religious persons to be at the core of existence and to have a transformative effect on their lives and destinies. Other terms such as a holy, divine, transcendent, ultimate being or ultimateriality, mystery and perfection or purity have been used for this domain. Sacred is also an important technical term in the scholarly study and interpretation of religions. Beyond an individual's faith and religion, some knowledge about the religious phenomenon and how the sacred is manifested in cults and churches in our country seem necessary. Social life everywhere is impregnated with the religious dimensions. Authentic or secular homo religious is a reality that must be taken into account and to which any sociological approach relates. Now, let us see the definitions of sacred. The sacred is the transcendent essence of the religious phenomena. Religions include very heterogeneous beliefs and manifestations, but they have something in common and specific by which the religious phenomena is distinguished from all others. The sacred is something outside and above individuals. It is therefore an individual's encounter, a reality that transcends. Bastide concluded, "If I were to give a definition of sacred, it would cross my subjectivity, my own experience of the sacred, and not a general definition." Albert Einstein, who is difficult to be labeled as religious, claimed that science without religion is not convincing. Science is Jacob's ladder. It ends at God's feet. The entire approach should start from the ideas that God is the basis of scientific and economic development of humanity. By creating man after his face and resemblance, God gave his creature and the capacity to rule the world. Moreover, in his prayer, Jesus prayed to the Heavenly Father for his appendices, asking not to escape from the world, but to guard them from evil. The field of religion is not the sacred, but translating the sacred or and expressed by Durkheim. Religion is the management of the sacred. Religion is a management system to warrant the sacred in the community. Recovering the sacred can be communicated adjustment through the sacred. According to sociological theories, the sacred is the heart of any religion And religion is a social phenomenon in origin, content and purpose. Understanding the word sacred, the fact that a physical space can be turned into a humanly meaningful social space and marked out as sacred has been the object of scholarly inquiry for a social scholars and theologians for a long time. Such spaces have displayed an intersection of environmental, religious, social and cultural aspects. In most religious systems, sacred spaces have been either identified or created, whether in primitive religions like animism or modern religions like Christianity, Islam or Buddhism. To understand the concept of sacred spaces, one must first of all understand what the word sacred means. According to Giedister, the term sacred is often used to ascribe a quality or characteristic to a wide variety of types of places and objects. According to the Encyclopedia Britannica, the term sacred refers to the power, being or realm understood by religious persons to be at the core of existence and to have a transformative effect on their lives and destinies. The etymology of the term sacred can be traced to the Latin word sacre, genitive sacri, which means that which is consecrated. The word sacred good either means set apart for by the divine, dedicated to the divine, anointed by the divine, and is often used in religious context to ascribe any of qualities to places, objects, animals or people. The word sacred could either mean set apart for by the divine, dedicated to the divine, anointed by the divine, and is often used in religious context to ascribe any of the aforementioned qualities to places, objects, animals or people. Sacred is an adjective that describes a noun as being either revered due to its sanctity or as a result of its association with the divine. In popular usage, the words sacred and holy are sometimes used interchangeably, but do not mean exactly the same thing. Whilst the word sacred is usually used to describe objects, places or happenings, the word holy is more often used in relation to persons. This slight difference is often overlooked and both words are used interchangeably in most modern usage. Now, my dear students, what are the sacred? You must know. The spaces, the concept of sacred spaces is common to most religions and traditions. Most societies distinguish places that are deemed especially significant, sacred, powerful, imbued with unquestionable authority are reserved for special uses from others that lack such a significance and reverence. The phenomenology of religion understands sacred spaces as manifestation or eruptions of inherent power and numinosity. To a religious person, space is not homogeneous. Some parts are qualitatively different from others, and this qualitative difference is a result of divine or supernatural forces manifesting within that space. Sacred spaces are usually serene environments that are awe-inspiring and encourage contemplation and meditation and create an attitude of respect towards religious values. Fickler describes sacred spaces as places of mystical manifestations that help man to access truth and transcend ordinary understanding of things so as to facilitate an intimate relationship with the divine. The sacred could be manifested in the most ordinary environments and places such as mountains, hills and groves. These places are not venerated for their own sake, but for their perceived supernatural power. Sacred spaces are common in most religions, and in most of these places the believer is overawed with spiritual reality and is unable to explain the experience. Some theologians have argued that sacred spaces are a factor in shaping religious systems. Sacred spaces are venue for a variety of religious activity, ritual and contribute immensely in a number of ways to the very meaning of the ritual practices, worship, traditions and practices that are carried out by the adherents of a religion in such spaces, whilst at the same time contributing tremendously to shaping the content of the religious systems and themselves. Generally, typical sacred space focuses the attention of the believer on the divine, impedes distraction from the outer world and frequently meditates the relationship between individual and God. Now, my dear students, you must know the origination of sacred spaces. According to the Park, the religious expression of sacred space varies greatly across space and time, and there is abundant evidence to suggest the concept of sacred space is not recent, but is deep rooted and long lived in many cultures across the world. It is not easy to agree on what defines the sanctity or sacredness of a place. One argues that the true meaning of the sacred goes beyond stereotypes, images of temples and shrines, because at the level of divine experience, sacred phenomena are those that are stand out from commonplace. One explains that sacred spaces share two common properties, which are: firstly, they are not transferable and therefore are valued as a result of their association with the divine. Secondly, they do not need to be re-established with each new generation. There is usually an inherited appreciation of the holiness of the sacred space. To one, the sacred must include qualities of apartness, orderliness and other worldliness. So, what makes a place sacred? According to Jonathan Smith, the idea of space being imbued with the holiness or the presence of the divine in Christianity is first illustrated by 4th century. Certain places that were significant in the life of Jesus Christ, such as his birthplace, his tomb, the venerated church of Nativity in Bethlehem and the church of Holy in Jerusalem. Early Christians believed that these places were closely linked with the crucial events in the life of Jesus Christ and thus were permitted with the divine power. Crime seems to suggest that sacred spaces are inherently holy. To the later, sacred spaces are seen as a vessel into which believers or adherents of a religion can pour their hopes, prayers and aspirations, and which in turn accommodates the meaning and the ideas that the believer, pilgrimage and locals invest in it. Another disagreement on the sacred spaces has to do with the meanings that are such spaces are meant to represent or convey. According to Gister and Lilienthal, sacred spaces contain an endless multiplication of meaning and is open to unlimited claims. The same line of thought, Yade and Salnov explained that a sacred space could signify almost anything. These authors focus on the cultural, social meanings and the interpretation that prevents them from the understanding sacred spaces from the point of view of the believer. Iwakiw disagrees with these authors and argues that sacred spaces, like any other spaces, places, object or things, cannot possibly accommodate all possible meanings or interpretations assigned on them. The meaningfulness of a place arises from its use by people and the role in the place plays in structuring social relationships and activities. In Christianity, any place where people gather to conduct religious activities is usually considered sacred because of the belief of the presence of God in the midst of every gathering in His name. The meaning ascribed to a sacred space is not imposed on to pre-existing natural realities, but emerge reciprocally with the lands, cultures and practices. This introduces the third view, which holds sacred spaces are shaped through interaction over time between humans and the divine. The meaning associated with the sacred spaces leads to the concept of a place identity. Levy and Koch describes sacredness as an aspect of place identity. Hogg defines place identity as the meanings and feelings associated with a place by a group of people. Place identity with respect the sacred spaces can either be derived inherently as a result of the presence of spiritual forces or as a result of consecration. In line with the third view expressed now, sacred spaces could also derive their sacredness as a result of a sacred event that occurred there, such as a miracle or the presence of sacred relics or religious icons. In some cases, their symbols may be presented by the environment or naturally occurring. The natural occurrence of a crucifix on a landscape could make a place gain reverence over time to gain the status of a sacred space. Now, my dear students, I think you are following my lecture. Now, let us have a look on sacred spaces in the world religion. Islam. The concept of sacred spaces is not privy to Christianity alone. In Islam, for example, even though the religion teaches that there is a fundamental unity between the sacred and the secular, and that none of creation can be non-sacred, some places in Islam are more revered than others as a result of the belief of the proximity with the divine within such spaces. One of these is the Kaaba in Mecca. Others are Medina, the place of the death of the Prophet Muhammad and the Dome of the Rock, the oldest existing mosque, believed to be the place where the Muhammad ascended into heaven to receive instructions on how Muslims would pray. Now, when we think about the Hinduism, the Aryans called their most sacred text Veda, meaning that the knowledge it was believed to have arisen from the infallible hearing Shruti by ancient seers of the sacred deposit of words whose recitation and contemplation bringing stability and well-being to both natural and human worlds. In Hinduism, the Ganges and its environment are not only seen as sacred, but as having therapeutic properties. Now when you think about the Buddhism with regard to the sacred, Buddhism's sacred spaces are associated with the life of Buddha. They include Lumbini, his place of birth, Bodh Gaya, where he became enlightened, Benaras, where he gave his first sermon, and Kushinagar, where he died. Jainism. Jainism, as you all know, is a very old religion. Some Jains indeed regard Hinduism as only a degenerate form of it. While Mahavira, an older contemporary of Buddha, is usually thought of as its founder, it's probable that it was much older and that Mahavira only gave it organized form so that thenceforth it stood apart from the Hindu medium in which it existed, created a sacred scripture and so perpetuated the ancient faith to our own times. Sikhism. A Gurdwara is a building in which Sikhs gather for congregational worship. However, wherever the Guru Granth Sahib is installed is a sacred place for Sikhs, whether there is a room in a private house or a Gurdwara. Okay students, finally we can see inter-religious sacred spaces. Some sacred places like a Dome of the Rock may have significance in more than one faith tradition as a result of controversies arise in their usage and administration. According to Crimes, this demonstrates that sacred spaces could exist at the height of unbridled controversies. The Dome of the Rock, for example, is a sacred mosque erected in Jerusalem on the ruins of Second Jewish Temple. To Jews, it is a site of both Solomon's Temple and the Herod's Temple. It is the holiest place in Judaism. The same place to Christians is a site of crucifixion of Jesus Christ, whilst to Muslim it is the third holiest place in the world after Mecca and Medina. The struggle among these three groups over the years has heightened the perceived sacredness of the place and its meaning, the respective faith traditions. Summary: the sacred is the set of related images that carry the sense of mystery. Sacred images those open a world to the transcendent. They mark the limits of the human world and the boundary points where the men and women meet their unknown but felt reality that encompasses their world. It is understood that a presupposing a permanent sense of mystery and the consequent universality of religious experience, and also distinguishing mystery as a transcendent reality from the sacred being understood as those images in a particular human world that meditate and express that mystery. The sacred, therefore, consists of those images which constitute a world as religious. They are used by men and women when they construct a world with religious meaning. Thus, the sacred images of God, Christ, incarnation, Trinity, sin, grace, redemption, and so on, constituted the world of Christendom. They were the work of the creative imagination in its encounter with the mystery, but are now under the imperative of changes in the cycle of imaginative activity. Conclusion: socio-economics of sacred spaces. Now let me see. Sacred spaces democrate landscapes into the profane and the sacred. The interactions between sacred spaces and the community can be examined from two perspectives. The community as the outer profane world and the community as including all who interact with benefits from or affected by or concerned about sacred spaces. Beyond spirituality, sacred spaces have historical importance and help provide meaning to a culture of a focus for a community's religious activities. Sacred spaces have implications for the local economy. They act as a vehicle to boost tourism among the faithful and beyond. One phenomenon closely associated to sacred sites that is instrumental in boosting tourism, creating employment and supporting the local economy is the pilgrimage that believers make to such a sacred spaces in an effort to encounter the divine. Park defines a pilgrimage as a journey made for spiritual purposes to sacred sites. It may be mandatory such as the Hajj or voluntary. Pilgrimage represents the main manifestation of the abiding pull of a sacred space. Few sacred spaces can regularly attract as many visitors as Mecca, Lourdes, the Ganges, Bodh Gaya and Fatima. Pilgrim movements are motivated by several factors. Some people embark on pilgrimage out of duty, others do so with hope of receiving special blessings or to seek healing, some others on a quest to enrich their personal faith and spirituality, whilst some pilgrims see the movement to sacred places as an opportunity to escape temporarily from the pressures of society. The economic importance of sacred spaces that are object of pilgrimages cannot be underestimated. Pilgrimage promotes tourism, has an effect on local economy, creates job opportunities and encourages the development of infrastructure such as shrines, shops that sell devotionals or ritual items, facilities for accommodation, camp sites and temples. Tourism to these places may either have a seasonal peaks or may be regular all year around. Mecca is the most visited sacred spaces in the world and the Hajj serves as a Saudi Arabia the third highest income earner after oil exports. In southwest France, 5 million pilgrims a year visit the grotto where it is believed 14-year-old Bernadette in a series of 18 visions between February and July 1858 encountered the Virgin Mary. Peak months at the Lourdes are April and October. From 1858, when the visions occurred till 1980, it is estimated that over 200 million pilgrims had visited Lourdes. Another such a site is the Fatima Shrine in Portugal. Okay, my dear students, I hope you understood the concept of what sacred is. So, thank you. Have a nice day.